Hello, everyone. It's so good to be back. And if it's your first time watching, my name is Michelle G., your relationship and dating guru, coming to you live from sunny San Diego. Now, wherever you may be watching, I just want to let you know that if you have any questions, comments throughout the entire episode, please email support@michelleg.com, and if I have a chance to get to your question, I will. If I don't, you'll get a personal response from me after the hangout. So I was gone for a couple of weeks, and it feels so good to be back. And so today's topic is, are you channeling your mother in your relationship? The answer is, drum roll please, yes! We all do it, including myself. It's one of those things that we don't really know why that is. Why is that? Why do we do it? Well, let's start by understanding a couple of reasons why it is that we do it. And I'm particularly going to share with you about 3 reasons as to why we do it. So, sorry, my iPad went crazy here. Just want to make sure I have the right thing on. When I did the drum roll, it did something funny. So one of the first reasons is the examples in your family of origin. So basically how you grew up with your parents. What you saw as far as how your parents interacted with one another. You know, was your mom a primary caretaker at home? Was your mom also, contributing as far as financially? How did they deal with conflicts? How did they deal with conflicts, one another? How did they do that? Another great example is their behavior towards one another. These are all things that as you're growing up and you're seeing this, it will definitely shape and mold your opinions as to what a relationship will look like for you in the future. Remember, I've talked about relationship beliefs, so that's part of where that derives from as well. Another great example is the media. Now, hear me out about the media. There's 2 stereotypical personalities that we usually see in the media, okay, that influence and shape how we see how we're supposed to be in relationships. One of them being, okay, you have the traditional, all right, the really nice guy, short, stubby, nice guy. He likes sports, stereotypically, and we see this played in sitcoms and movies, in your favorite shows. And then you have something else. You have the guys who are tall, dark, and handsome, the successful men. But there's a difference in both of these stereotypical personalities. One being that usually it's the really nice guy. He's vulnerable. And then you have the guy who's kind of tall, dark, and handsome, emotionally unavailable, successful, but yet, he's just, they're portrayed to us in this way. So that influences us as far as how we deal with situations. And it influences us also because it shows us the perspective of both sides of men, which is interesting. Usually the tall, dark, and handsome guy, it's portrayed in sitcoms as being the playboy. He's not usually really involved, and he has certain views in regards to dating and relationships. And then you have the guy who's the really nice guy, the short, stubby guy, who's a family man. He's all about his family, all about his wife. And usually in the situations where you see mothering being more showed in sitcoms or in movies is in scenario A, being the short and stubby guy. And that kind of influences us, and it also creates, subconsciously, we kind of learn these patterns, how we should be in those relationships and what is expected of us in those relationships. The other part of it is when you're mothering, as women, we have more hormones to nurture, right? And so the problem comes in that the more that you mother your partner, the more likely you are not going to be sexually attracted to them, vice versa, okay? Your partner's probably not going to be sexually attracted to you either. It just kind of happens that way. So I want to go over with you some triggers, and I want to point out 5 of the most common triggers and scenarios that you are more than likely, I find that are very common, okay? So example number 1. All right, so we have, like I talked about, the triggers of the memories of basically, what you saw when you were growing up. That was number 1. Number 2, we talked about the media. I think I really kind of pinpointed in on the media because we consume information and we learn patterns and behaviors that we end up emulating. And one of the things I want to caveat on that too is that when we're watching all of our sitcoms and movies, what ends up happening is that those scenarios or those situations stay in our brain housing group. And when it stays in our brain housing groups, at one point or another, we may experience something very similar. And so what ends up happening is that it ends up kind of like recalling back that memory, and it kind of shifts us into being like, oh, this is how I should react because this is familiar to me. I've seen this before. And that's something to keep in mind. And these are things, again, these are triggers that I'm going over in scenarios that you can find yourself staying in that mommy mode in your relationship. Excuse me, in-laws. I love my in-laws. I have a great relationship with my in-laws. As a matter of fact, my husband has a great relationship with my mother. And there have been on occasions where my husband has talked to my mother about some things, that may be going on in our marriage or disagreements that we have or something, or maybe a life transition. And I do the same thing with his mother, and we talked. And we both just kind of get an outsider's perspective. Number one, my mother-in-law was married for 30-something years. My mother's been married for 17 years. So they've obviously, have more experience and understand and have more patience as to what it takes to continuously get a marriage to work. And so we both, my husband and I, we both talk to our in-laws, and we both talk to our own parents. But the most important thing is that it's really important that we understand that they're just opinions, and I can accept them, I can take them with a grain of salt, or I can say, you know what, that's a really great idea. Let me go ahead and see how I can apply that to whatever's happening in my marriage. What I want to tell you is that with those opinions, though, sometimes when you're talking to someone else seeking outside advice, particularly in-laws, because they're so close and, they mean very well. They want for you and your husband to succeed or you and your partner to succeed. Sometimes what ends up happening is that those opinions or those suggestions rub us the wrong way. And when they rub us the wrong way, we end up taking it out and shifting into mothering our significant other. We shift into that mommy mode immediately because something's bothering us. So instead what we should do is that we should definitely take the opportunity to talk to our partner about what was suggested, about what was said, versus talking at them, okay? And number 4, now this is another big one, a big common thing, and I'm gonna give you guys a really great example of this: domestic chores. When I was younger, my mom, I've said this before, my mother was an immigrant from Ecuador, and I remember when I was really young that my mom, and I wish I had the picture, but I don't. My mom would make dinner. She was a homemaker, and my real father would go, and he would go out and work, and he'd come home, and dinner would be displayed on the table. And I remember that, she would make dinner, she would cook, she would clean, and then she would do the dishes, and then she would take care of me and feed me. And my father never did any chores. And to me, that was very normal, right? After my mother divorced and got remarried to my stepdad, who I consider like my biological dad, he's phenomenal, it was interesting to see the dynamics of how that changed. So my parents divorced when I was really young, and my mother got remarried when I was in like 7th or 8th grade. She met my stepfather, and my stepfather was completely different. My stepfather would actually contribute to the household. Like, he would do chores, and he would, plan out outings, and he was just completely different from what I was used to seeing with my real dad. And one of the things that happens, and I saw this dynamics in my parents' relationship, was that if my dad did something and it wasn't done the way my mother wanted it to be done, or it wasn't how she wanted it to be done, she would kind of criticize him. And so what I started noticing is that during my first marriage, I kind of did the same thing. And what ends up happening there is that it really, if as a child, me talking from my parents' perspective, it kind of shows me that instead of like being more grateful and being more appreciative, it's like, oh, it wasn't done right. You know, you focus on the negative of it when you really shouldn't. What you should really focus on is, now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, my dad took the opportunity to use that as he was being a leader. He was showing us that he was a leader and he was contributing to the relationship. You know, so sometimes as women, because it's not done how we want it to be done or in the manner that we want it to be done, it's not good enough for us. But take aside from that, especially in a relationship, it's about teaching and learning and being a leader, both parties being a leader in a relationship. And the last one, now I got some other stuff to share with you, but the last one that's, I think, one of the most important triggers and the scenarios always build around this is the communication style. Earlier I said if there's something that bothers you, talk to your partner versus talking at them. That's something that we tend to do as women, I think, because we have that nurturing side, and I also feel that also because we have that nurturing side, we always are so used to teaching and giving that we forget to, in a relationship, we're dealing with another adult who is just as comprehensive and probably as educated or even more educated than what we are. So it's okay to have that dialogue like to adults. And this happens a lot, especially when you have younger children. The communication style sometimes changes because you want to teach the kids that mom and dad get along really well. So it's, dad calls his wife mom versus honey, dear, love. And the mother, instead of calling her husband babe, sweetheart, love, ends up calling her partner, dad, which kind of also shifts mentally. It kind of shifts the roles in the relationship. I'm being told that I have a question, so I'm going to pause really quickly. It says, the question is, if you've already crossed the line and are mothering your partner, how do you course correct? That's a great question. I'm actually about to get to the answer on that right now. So that was such a great question. Course correction is always possible, okay? So, one of the things is I want to tell you what happens on the other shoe, if you will, the shoe on the other foot, when you're mothering your significant other a little bit too much. What ends up happening? There's 3 things that ends up happening. Your husband's significant other becomes undecisive. They no longer want to share their opinions, thoughts, or challenge your opinions and thoughts. Kind of like in the beginning when you guys would have those great conversations during the dates where it would be like, well, I believe this, or I don't think this, And then another thing as a result of that is that the romance slowly begins to fade away. And, most importantly, these situations, as a result, keep you in that mothering mode, which becomes a problem, And so now I want to kind of get into how is it that we can kind of start shifting. When you've crossed that line, how do we start shifting that, okay? And stay till the end because I have my #1 secret that's going to go ahead and transform you from mommy mode, that mother internal landscape, and to, wife mode or partner mode and elevate your relationship. So let me start by saying this. #1. This is really great. I love this. I saw this video on YouTube. Actually, it was kind of funny. My husband showed it to me. When he's undecisive, okay? Instead of giving him conditions, like saying, yeah, this is the example. Hey, I don't know what you want to do for dinner tonight, wife. Husband says, oh, I don't care. Whatever you want. Why don't you pick? Wife, you know what? I don't care. Why don't you pick? Just make a decision. Okay, fine, I will make a decision. How about we go get some pizza? Wife. You know what? I really don't feel like pizza. Can we get something else? Husband. Okay. How about I don't know. How about we go get some fish tacos? Wife. Nah, you know what? I'm not feeling that. I'm kind of feeling Indian. How about Indian food? My husband's laughing. You may hear him because this has happened to us. Um, that's what I mean by conditional if and then relationship. If and then, moments. It's really kind of like not really giving him the room to decide. You're kind of, if you know what you want, then clearly state it. Just say, look, this is what I think we should do for dinner. What are your thoughts on it? And your partner, your husband may say, yeah, sure, it sounds good. Or he may say, no, I'm not really feeling it. Why don't you just grab that and I'll go grab my pizza? My husband loves pizza. He can eat pizza 5 nights a week. I don't like pizza all the time. I'm actually more diverse. So for us, sometimes when we go out to dinner, we have learned that he'll go get pizza, and I will go and get whatever it is I want, and we'll find a place and we'll eat together. That solves our problem. But I allow him to be decisive. I allow him to make the decision. Be inquisitive, all right? When you stop being inquisitive in the relationship, it furthermore triggers your partner to not share anything with you, okay? Here's a perfect example. Hi, honey, how was your day? Oh, it was great, Oh, okay, good. How was yours? Oh, it was good. All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and start making dinner. Okay, good, yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sit down on the couch and just, watch this or catch up on this. Oh, okay, great. Well, glad to hear that you had a good day. You too. I don't even know in that transaction, was there a peck given? Was it a kiss on the cheek? What was it? I don't know. I'm going to say it was kind of like a long distance, hey, hey, nice to see you today. Come on. Take that opportunity to be a little more inquisitive. Hey, so tell me, you were talking that this was going to happen at work. How did it go? Did it end up going good? Sometimes he may answer and he may become a little bit more talkative, and sometimes he may say, look, you know what, I really want to talk about this. I can't really talk about this right now because I'm really concerned about, I want to find out about this that I saw earlier today and it's been on my mind all day. That is not the opportunity for you to say, you see, I'm trying. Because in that moment, you shift into mother mode, okay? No, that's the opportunity to allow him to say, okay, great. Well, can we talk? Can I bring it up later? Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, no problem. Okay, great. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen right then and there, but you have to be patient and keep trying, okay? Because the more you keep trying, the more the doors of opportunity open. All right. And encourage his romantic side. I can't stress this enough. When you do the first two, when you're more inquisitive, when you're give him the room to be decisive, to be more of a man, you would be surprised at how much more willing and more romantic and caring and comfortable he is in just being that romantic side of him. Now, not all men are romantic. That's another hangout in itself, but I'm not going to get into it right now. You know what I mean? But it's really, when you implement the first two, it allows room for him to kind of be more romantic, be more vulnerable, okay? And so I hope that I've answered your question in regards to how do you course correct, because it's really important that you put these two into play and continuously be mindful of them and work through them. Now, what I want to share with you is my number one, yes, my number one secret to transform, okay, your relationship. Okay, transform it from always being mommy mode, especially if you have kids, or even if you don't have kids, if you're just so used to, because as women, we're used to taking care of everyone, and we forget to take care of ourselves, this is the number one secret. Are you ready for it? Drum roll, please. Love and accept everything that you dislike about your partner. I know you're probably looking at me like, that's it? Really? Like, seriously, that's it? Here's the thing. That is so much easier said than it is done, honestly. But let me tell you something. How do you do that? It comes down to making that decision. And when you make that decision from a heart place, it requires three things. Number one, it requires practice. It's a decision that you continuously keep practicing. Number two, it requires you to be compassionate, okay? Because it's a decision, again, that you're practicing, which means you got to cultivate compassion. And last but not least, and my most favorite components of this equation is awareness. Is taking a step back, just stopping for 3 seconds or more before you respond. And I promise you that if you do that, you'll start noticing when you're shifting into mommy mode. Like, if you just take a moment and you say, okay, well, and you continue on and voice your opinion or voice and talk about however it is that you want to talk about, whatever it is that you're looking to talk about, I promise you that your conversations will be smoother and that it will be a lot easier for you to be able to connect with your partner the way a partnership should be versus, tittle-tattling between, I'm taking care of you too, just like I take care of the kids, and it just turns into this perpetual, just non-stop argumentative cycle. Okay, so that's it. I mean, that's what I really wanted to share with you. I want to tell you that I'm so excited, and I want to thank you for spending this time with me. And as always, if you have any further questions, you have any comments, contact me at support@michelleg.com. Now, next week I have a really cool segment to talk to you about, which is celebrity relationships. We're going to take a look at 3 celebrity relationships, okay? One that's married, one that's dating, and one that's uncoupled. And we're going to analyze all those relationships, see the commonalities, and see what was lacking in some of the relationships. How is it that those marriages last longer? Now, everyone loves a good trashy magazine. I mean, people, you got E! Hollywood, you got all kinds of stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and gather that information and make it into a really juicy segment for you. So with that being said, I want to thank you again for spending this time with me. But remember, every day is a new day to reignite your relationship, but it always starts with you. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Bye-bye.